Hello, friends. This is Debojyoti, and today we have a very special guest. She's from Brazil and she's currently in Europe. So she has basically globalized football. Isadora Mazon. How are you, Isadora?
I'm okay, thank you.
Now, Isadora, I have to say you this, right? During World Cup, because India is not that strong of a power in football, but we love football, right? In India, I'm not joking. If you come to India during football World Cup season, honest to gosh, you will have more flags of Brazil in India than in Brazil. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. So India basically during World Cups gets divided in two nations. Okay, it's two countries within one country. One is Argentina and one is Brazil. Argentina is a small country anyway in terms of population. Now, I'm pretty sure if you come during World Cup, you will see more flags of Brazil in India than you see in Brazil. No
Oh,
joking. So yeah. So India and Brazil go a long way back. Before you and me, it's a long connection. So anyway, jokes apart, Isadora, how are you?
my god, that's so good, really. I loved it. I'm not a huge fan of football, but I know that in Brazil we talk a lot about football, and it's so nice to know that in India people really like the Brazilian football.
Yeah, it's Brazil and Argentina. People literally like fight over it, right? It's crazy. You should come to football. You should come to India during a football season. As a Brazilian, you will automatically like treated as a god, right? Because we associate football and Brazil so much. So anyway, like people are crazy over football, but we are not particularly good at it. Anyway, and Isadora, what is the like the football culture? I just had to ask you this before I move on to yourself. You mentioned that Brazil, you are not that much into football.
Can you repeat the question? Like,
So
if
you
I'm not,
mentioned that you're not that much into football, right? You're
yes.
not the. Does it count as blasphemy in Brazil? Do the people put people in jail for this?
Actually, I know that Brazilian soccer is really famous, but I know that a lot of people are not really into that. Like, it's more for the masculine people, like my father, my brother, they all like football. But in my family too, of course. But actually, for me or for my mother, like it really doesn't matter that much. But I know that it's not a blasphemy.
Okay, then good. You're not going to jail. Anyway, now if we start talking about football, we'll be here all day. So let's just move far past it. So Isadora, you have obviously done short films. You're a very creative person. But what I try to do in these interviews is I try to go beyond that person. We know the artist, but I try to know the person behind it. So Isadora, like let's talk about your childhood. Like how was it like growing up in Brazil? I guess maybe 20-25 years back. So how was your childhood in Brazil?
Well, fortunately, my childhood was really amazing. Like, I really have a very deep and great memories about my childhood because I grew up in a family that could give me a lot of opportunities to grow up, to study in a good school, to be with my family. My mother and my father, they are together. So I have a brother, an oldest brother, and I played a lot. I did a lot of things, and I started to do theater and some classes when I was 7 years old. And then my adolescence was more complicated actually because I rebelled myself and I said that I wanted to be an actress, that I wanted to like follow art in my life. And this was really hard to accept in my family, and I know that actually this can be really hard to accept in any family that doesn't have any artists. So I know that Brazil is a country that has a lot of things and issues or problems with childhood, but I had a really great and enjoyable childhood that gave me the opportunity to play and to discover myself the way that I am, or to rediscover myself during my childhood and then my adolescence, and then when I grew up and became an adult.
I just before going into the creative side, you mentioned like a really important thing, and that is the stereotype of Brazil. Because in international media, Brazil is sometimes portrayed as this crime-riddled country where the crime rate is very high. And as an Indian, I can feel it as well because in Western media, India is also portrayed this way as well in a certain negative light. But trust me, I haven't met that much Brazilian people. They are the nicest people. I'm not even like bragging or anything. I'm not hyperbole. They are literally the sweetest people. So this stereotype of Brazil being, yes, there are problems in every country, but the stereotype of Brazil being this like this lawless land where it's riddled with crime, it's so wrong. If you actually speak to a Brazilian, it's like the farthest thing from truth.
Yes, actually, like I really love Brazil in a way that I can't say in words. Like the nature in Brazil is unique. I haven't seen nature the way that I've seen in Brazil. And at the same
Instead of which part of, sorry to interject, which part of Brazil you're from?
I'm from São Paulo, so really big city. But actually, I ran into some really special places in Brazil, like Bahia and Chapada Diamantina, Chapada dos Veadeiros. It's like amazing, beautiful places where we can connect so much with nature, where we can connect so much with the people that live there. So, culture in Brazil is something really amazing and so diverse. So, if you go to Brazil, you're going to see like a lot of different people that lives there. Because, like in India, we are a big country, like not like India, but we are a big country. And then you know that we have like different cultures in the country, on the country. So, if you go to the north, you're going to know different cultures and dances and people and ways of talking, of being and seeing life. And then if you go to the south, you're going to know other kind of living life, of culture, of art, and of food. So you can go like north and south, and you're going to see different Brazil.
Yeah, you mentioned about like the cultural diversity of a large country, and Brazil is like huge. It's I think the fifth biggest country in the world, right? Geographically speaking, it's like it's bigger than Australia, an entire continent. So yeah, I mean, it's like really nice, and like I just have to ask because I have like when I have spoken, Brazilian people are usually pretty good. They speak English in their daily lives as well. What was the language you spoke? Was it mostly Portuguese, or did you speak a lot of English growing up as well?
Well, actually, it's Portuguese, like Portuguese. We speak Portuguese, but I had like English lessons when I was at school. But I started to go to an English school after school, normal school. So I started to go to an English school when I was 9 years old, and I studied English for 7 years at this school, and then I did an exchange program to the United States, and I stayed there for 6 months in high school with a family that I lived with them. So I had like host sisters, host father and mother that took care of me for these 6 months that I was there. And then I came back to Brazil to finish my school.
Okay, and you mentioned you had such a like a lovely time speaking about your childhood. You know, the family you grew up in. Were you always interested in art, like growing up? About the school plays, like even the small things like school plays, or maybe writing or practicing songs. Were you always interested in art growing up?
Well, that's a really interesting question because when I was a child, I was studying in a school that had a very humanitarian values. So when I was a child, I started to have like music classes at school when I was maybe 5, 6 years old. I really don't remember, but after a while, with 7, 8 years old, I started to have theater lessons at this school. And I just loved because the first play that I've watched at school was Hamlet from Shakespeare. And then I was completely in love for that play. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do this. It's so beautiful. I don't know. Something just got in my heart. And I started to say to my parents, like, I really want to do theater classes. And then I started to do theater classes and dance classes. So, and after my grandmother, she loved the piano. She had a really good friend that was a teacher. And then I started to do piano classes. So I was really little when I started to evolve and actually just grow up with art, surrounded by art. And then when I became an adolescent, I really went to a theater school. I started to do plays, to like rehearse every Saturday or Monday, Tuesday, Friday. And then I just grew up, and I, with 15 years old, I just knew that I wanted to be an artist because I had this opportunity when I was a child to grow up with that. But anyway, I had a cousin that had the same opportunities, and she's not an artist. So I think it has the opportunity, and it has what really sparkle inside of you, you know, like something that gives you life inside of you. And this was what gave me life, and something that I really wanted to pursue, really wanted to go into, because I know that art for so many of us is the way that we can express who we are in the world without maybe the boxes, you know, like I have to be this or do that and this. Art is something that you are free to create what you want. This was something that for me was so important to understand. Art gave me the opportunity to understand who I am and the opportunity to go inward of myself, you know, and to express this to the world in a way that maybe it's not common and it's not every time so beautiful, you know, and so like, but I could express every part of me in art, doing art, like dancing or writing texts that really talk it to with my soul. So that's why I just started to the art path that is really hard and tough, but it's so, I feel that my soul is just like, thank you for giving me this opportunity to express myself in this way. Does that make
Thank
sense?
you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Isadora. That was a beautiful answer. And you obviously mentioned you're being surrounded by art, and you give like a very beautiful description of art, and that is expressing yourself. And the like the last part that you mentioned, the synchronization with the soul, that was really beautiful. And yeah, that is like a new perspective, like how we see art, not just to like to create a spectacle, but sometimes to synchronize with ourselves, something that is within us, our soul. Isadora, one thing you mentioned that you watched Hamlet and something that had an effect on you, and you were surrounded by art. What was the culture of cinema in Brazil when you were growing up? Because Brazilian cinema is something that doesn't always get talked about globally. Yes, there are movies like City of God that has an international following, but it is something, especially coming from India, far away, thousands of miles away. It's not something. Now, people like me knows about Brazilian cinema because that's what I do. But for general audience, what was the culture of cinema in Brazil when you were growing up? Did you guys had indigenous cinema, native cinema, Hollywood films that came to you? What was the culture like?
Okay. So when I grew up, actually, we, at that time, the movies that we consumed a lot was United States movies, like cinema from United States, and that's it. Actually, when I started to know more about Brazilian cinema was when I was at college. When I was studying art and acting for theater, and then I started to go to places where it has beautiful, amazing Brazilian cinema that I didn't even know it existed at that time. Actually, for now, Brazil cinema is like blossoming. It's like it's a flower that was there, like a seed, and now I think it's like whoa, appearing to the world, because Oscars just went like amazing. I was so happy to know that the movie that Walter Salles did just got another Oscar. Like it's amazing for us at this moment. But at that time in my childhood, I really didn't have an idea of what was Brazilian cinema. I just had the idea of the soap operas that in Brazil is really famous, right? Like soap operas. So when I said I wanted to be an actress, people used to say to me, "Oh, you're going to be on the TV doing soap operas," and I was like, "I don't really know that if I'm going to be there because it wasn't really my passion." But anyway, it was an opportunity to be more seen. But now with the cinema growing a lot, I think it's like the messages that are passing about our country, they are so real and so alive. Like our history is something that needs to be showed to the world, you know, the all the things that we passed, all our background, you know, like Brazil was not discovered, it was robbed, it was taken, you know, it existed something before Portugal come to Brazil. It existed a culture, indigenous, like connected to nature, so many beautiful things that was taken. So when I actually, this is something really interesting to know. When I was studying at school, we learned that Brazil was discovered by Portugal. But this is not true because Brazil, it already existed before Portugal to come there, you know? So this was something that I had to discover by myself, that Brazil wasn't discovered or at 1500. So it was something that it already existed. It had a history before that we don't really know about it. Not in deep ways. So now we have like indigenous people in the political that are fighting for nature, are fighting for Amazonia. So this is a lot. We have a lot of documentary about this, but it's not that we know. Like as a population, we really don't know our history. And this is sad because then we can't understand our own identity. You know, like I've seen a lot of Brazilian people want to be like America and United States, you know. But actually, we have something so beautiful in our culture that now is starting to show up in a way that it's like, yeah, our cinema is showing who we are and not who we want to be, you know? Does that make sense? Do I answer your question?
Absolutely, it does, and like you have pointed out something, and that is the Christopher Columbusian history, right? Of like some European discovering something where people lived for thousands of years. Like I have spoken to Native Americans, they get furious. Like, what do you mean by Columbus discovered? We are here for like 5,000 years, and you absolutely mentioned that. Brazil, it's a beautiful country. In a lot of ways, Brazil is very similar to India because it's a big country, lot of cultures, lot of people as well. I think what is Brazil's population? 240 million, 250 million?
I don't know. I really don't know.
It's over 200 million. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yes.
Maybe close to 250 million. So it's a big country, lot of people. And the thing that you mentioned, that the indigenous Brazil, we see what like the Portugal filter of Brazil, what the colonialism, the colonial filter. Now we experience that because I'm not sure if you know this. India was ruled by British for 200 years. So we had gone through similar type of thing. Now, obviously, and as I said, Brazil and India are very similar in a way. That's why like the flags and stuff during World Cup, right? So yeah, we are very similar type of people. And yes, the history and Brazilian cinema. I have watched Brazilian cinema, of course. Brazilian cinema as a market has no way up apart from anything. It is going up. It's a big country, big indigenous market. They have their own stories to tell, so many different cultures. And the thing that you mentioned, the pre-Portugal colonization history of Brazil, which you don't see much of. So it's so much potential, and I just love that you embraced your identity. That yeah, I'm a Brazilian first. I'm not that Portugal filter. So that was beautiful. Absolutely. And as an Indian, Obviously, sometimes we see that as well, that lot of British influence, and I'm not like I'm not holding British accountable for something they did 300 years ago, but I am not them. I am me, right? So it was really profound.
Thank you. Absolutely. India and Brazil, we have like very similar ways, even with the connection with the spirituality and religion. We have, I don't know, I really feel like similarities on that. Like your people, they do have a very deep connection with God and Goddess and religion in a beautiful way. I really want to go to India to know more about that because it's something that fascinates me. And in Brazil, we actually, before we have the colonization and the Catholicism that we have in Brazil, we had other religions. We had more connection with nature as not actually as a religion, but as a sign of sacred, like our land is sacred, we have to take care of it. And then now we have a lot of different religions in Brazil that is not Catholic, and this is beautiful because it's, again, it's our culture, it's our background, that African religion is, we have a lot of that in Brazil, and it's so deep, it's so strong, it's so like the music is part, the sacred part that we celebrate the existence of God, So this is brilliant. This is amazing. I really love the diversity that we have in Brazil, and that you in India, you do have a lot of diversity. And this is so rich because then we can just feel different ways of being here and live life and think, so diversity is enrich the country. So that's what I think, that's what I really feel inside of me when I go to another country to do tourism, but I really like to observe how people act, how people do. Like in Italy, they really have a connection with food. So food for them is really, really important. And they do like rituals of food, like the first plate, the second, the third, the dessert, and all this kind of stuff, A lot of countries, they have this different connections with religion, with food, with culture, with ways of thinking, with ways of being and expressing yourself. And this is so rich. I love that.
Yeah, you mentioned about the pride of having living in an ancestral land, and the connection with nature and the ancestral. Again, yes, it is very similar to Africa has, like, they do not have, as you mentioned, the way we understand religion, but it's a belief system. Their culture is based on that, their ancestor, their land, the nature they live in, and it's a beautiful thing. It's something like, yeah, like we are in a different culture, but the culture they have, it's beautiful. Like, I would love to, like, sometime go on Africa or Brazil and just like spend time with these indigenous people.
Mm.
Like, and again, it's this media stereotype of portraying them as barbaric and they are not civilized. It is so wrong. Talk to them. Doesn't if something's different from you, doesn't mean they are wrong or they are less civilized than you, right? So yes, I think Brazil has a lot of protected tribes, right? Especially in the Amazon region. In India, we have several protected tribes, and the culture is so beautiful. And again, that is like what makes a civilization, right? It's the integration of so many different things. If you have one culture, that is boring. How is that interesting? Like, it's like watching one movie 100 times, not interesting. So it's like, yeah, you mentioned about the integration and like observing different cultures, associating different things. Yeah, absolutely, I would love to, just invite me over. I'll love to go to Brazil someday, and you should definitely come to India. Some Indian people are the sweetest. They might ask you about Pele or Neymar. I cannot guarantee, or like ask you to kick a football, but otherwise Indian people are super nice.
That's so nice, really. Because India just, it gives me so much curiosity, like even your cinema is something like so amazing. So I don't know. I'm sure that I'm going to India sometime of my life, maybe soon. Like I don't know, it's soon, but maybe in 2 years I really want to spend some months there and to know the culture, because Asia in general like really calls me at something really deep inside of me. Just call me to go to Asia and to go to India and Thailand and Indonesia and China. I know all these countries that I really want to go. So to know culture, to know all these parts that maybe like something that I really want to discover more is to go to places in this that are not so much in the tourist, like that tourists go. And then for me, it's something like the magic. It's not where tourists go a lot. It's in between. It's where we don't really know, but Indian people know where to go. So when I will go there, I really want to know like someone that will guide me to the best places that are not with a lot of tourists, but they are magical. So I really do believe that. And in Brazil, it's the same. Like, okay, people say a lot about Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo. They are magical places. But if you know a Brazilian one that will guide you to the best places in Brazil, you will have very amazing another kind of trip. You're going to know places that are sacred and magical, that it's not with a lot of tourists, but it has like its own magic. So as I mentioned before, I went to Chapada Diamantina, that is Bahia, and is a place that you're just like, oh my God, this really exists? Am I here? Like, it's so beautiful. Oh my God, I can't. So, and you mentioned Amazonia, and it's a place that I really want to go, that I didn't have the opportunity to go. I'm Brazilian, but I didn't have the opportunity. And I want the same thing as you, to go there, be like a week with indigenous people. And my mother had this opportunity because she is a pharmacist, and she when she was in, they paid for a lot of people, like doctors, pharmacists, and dentists, all this kind of graduation students, to go to Amazonia and take care of the indigenous people. So she spent 3 months living there, living their culture, understanding how they connect with nature, understanding how they ritualize and what do they eat, how do they act in their lives. So, well, it's amazing to have a mother that experienced that. And for me, it's something that I really want to experience too when I come back to Brazil.
Where are you currently, by the way?
What?
Where are you currently? You mentioned Europe. Where are you currently?
I'm in Italy.
Okay, so two culture rich places. Italy is also like. So you mentioned like let's get back to cinema now. You mentioned that when you were growing up, you did not see a lot of Brazilian movies. You saw most of Hollywood, right? The
Yeah.
stuff that came out of USA, and only now the Brazilian cinema has started to blossom. So, what like when you came, like when you decided, you mentioned you in 15, you like decided that art is going to be the path you follow, right? It is going to be something that you do. So, like what were the opportunities? I know you mentioned as well that soap operas are big in Brazil, and I have spoken to a couple of people. Reality shows is huge in Brazil. At least in a time, like reality shows are huge. So, like, what, like if a person, say you, who's passionate and like want to make a career in art, what is the path away to them? Because in India, the thing is, because India is such a populated country, we have small film industries. Okay, like I'm a Bengal, there is a Bengali film industry, there is a Marathi film industry, Hindi film, Tamil, Telugu. So it's like a million film industries literally inside India, at least 20, probably more. So, like, what is the pathway of a Brazilian artist, especially if they want to pursue their career in the field of acting? I don't, I hate the, like, the demarcation between small and big screen. That is something that I don't believe. So, what is the pathway to becoming an actress?
Okay. So in Brazil, I will give a part of it. Okay, the one that I lived. So in Brazil, well, you having a background is really important. So actually, I started like acting when I was little, but I didn't go very fast to the publicity, for an example. That is an industry that you can become very not famous but known for with that people that do publicity. The same people can do cinema. So if they know you and they like your work, they will like call you or anything like that. But if you don't, like me, I started doing theater. Then I did University of Acting that gave me some opportunities to know more about theater in Sao Paulo or cinema or operas. We had some agents that came to the university to know us, and I did a partnership with an agent there. But to have an agent in Brazil is really frustrating because if you don't have an agent that really takes care of you like a marriage, like you have like this partnership that you say, well, I want to achieve this, and he listens to you. If you don't have that, like just an agent that will send you some or other tests and really doesn't matter, you're just another number for him, it's really difficult to have opportunities. Then I started to produce myself because I didn't have the opportunities that I was waiting for, because it's really difficult. We have a lot of actors in Brazil that wants to be famous or to, have opportunities. So me with my friends, we started to produce ourselves. So do short movies, do theater, do like I have a really close friend that she and her boyfriend is from Amazonia. So they do Amazon cinema amazonense, it's called. So she started to produce herself too with the movies, with all of that to become known in the market. So with a lot of people in Brazil that wants to be an actor and being so difficult to have a good agent, to have opportunities, to it doesn't matter if you're a good actor. And that's sad because the industry really prioritizes in this moment in Brazil, like how many followers do you have on Instagram? If you're an influencer, known without them, or if you're known already for a past, if were a child and started doing cinema or soap operas, that is really common to take actors from soap operas and do cinema. So if you didn't have all that background, if you don't have a lot of followers, if you're no one, you have to start producing yourself. You don't have an option. Like, so then when you start to produce yourself and start to be known, then they start calling you, or they start like, look at that movie that she did, that and that and that. So for my friends that I have great friends that are actresses, and they are very good actresses. They are all producing themselves at this moment. So it's not easy in Brazil to be an actor. It's really not, they don't pay well. They just pay well people that are known and do some soap operas or do cinema for a long time that already have a name. And if you don't, you're not going to be paid well. So if you don't produce yourself, it's going to be hard.
Yes, the two things that you mentioned is actually crippling our cinema as well. One is the nepotism part, that you need to have connections to proceed in the field of cinema, and second is your social media footprint. How many followers you have? What is your reach on social media? Yeah, it's something that is unfortunate, but there was a there is a positive side to it. Is you became more DIY. You started producing your stuff, and started doing short films. So in a way that sharpened you creatively. So that is, so there is a side to it as well. Now I think my the first time I watched you was in the short film Skinned. It was, I think, a couple of years back. It came out, I think, in 2021. Like, was it something similar to this, the ones that you mentioned, that it was produced by you and your friends, and it was a very bold role as well, it required nudity and all that. So tell me about that, because that was the first time I saw you, I think maybe 1.5 year back.
Sure, yes. This was a movie that I did here in Italy, a short movie. So actually, I was working on a cinema festival here, and I was participating on the selection of some young directors. And then this director came to us. It was a selection to give budget to do the short movies and to actually do the idea. They had like directors and teachers that would be with them during the process of creating these short movies. And then it was 8 directors that were selected. And then this director, I really loved the idea of his movie. And as I was an actress, I just said, well, if you need some actress or if you need someone to help you with the production, you can count on me. And he said, absolutely, I want that. So I started to produce because I produced the movie with them. And then I had the participation of this on this movie that I was the skeleton. And it was really fun. It was amazing process because the director, he was the God, the devil, and he's an amazing director. He could actually, the whole people that were doing this movie together, we were really like talking. We had a great communication. We went to the place. We started doing that, and it was amazing. So for me, it was a great opportunity to be on the entire Italian cinema and to know people that really hugged me. I felt hugged here in Italy, something that I didn't in Brazil. But here, I really felt like here is more important your talent than if you're beautiful or if you have a lot of followers on Instagram. It doesn't really matter. Like what did you study? How do you act? So for me, this was great movie that we did all of it, like the production and everything, but we had the budget from this festival that I was working on.
That was really nice. And you mentioned that the opportunity started opening up when you moved to Italy, and then you have obviously done multiple stuff. So Isadora, the thing that I like to mention, like how, like I'm not sure, like how, not sure how to like face this question. Like, is it feasible to survive professionally as an independent actress? In, I think you're probably doing it more in Italy now, more Italy based. So, like, are the opportunities regular enough to sustain yourself, or is it something that you need to do like a side gig? Like, you have a profession, you do it just out of passion. So, is it something that is completely a passion, or is it something that is like a, like feasible as a profession to support yourself?
Yes, actually, here in Italy, I'm living here for not so long, so I don't really know how it works, but talking with people that I know, it's kind of the same in Brazil. Like I think it's in the whole world like this, that you in the beginning you don't have enough money to sustain yourself. So you have, like in my case, I'm here by my own. So I can't just do acting for my life because sometimes we have a test and sometimes we don't, but still we have to pay the bills. So for me, it's something like in this moment I'm working with another thing that it's nothing compared, like it's nothing with acting, but I have to pay my bills. At the same time, I'm doing other projects that I want to do when I have like vacation of this work, when I have with to make that happen. So it's really hard to have time to do one and another thing, you know? So actually, for me, it is a passion, but I really want to make this work. And then for in this moment, I'm working with something else, and I'm doing projects to make that work. Okay.
So yeah, so art
Can you
is
give
your
me
first.
something?
Sure, go ahead. I'll just
Okay.
take out this. I have saved the time frame. No worries. So just as you mentioned that art is your first love, but it is not in a state to monetize, right? So
Yes.
you are doing something else to pay the bills, and you want to eventually make it like something that is also financially feasible, not just art, and that is beautiful. That is the real hustle of an artist, I guess. You mentioned having that soul, and like, have you thought of broken into the mainstream cinema, because you have done mostly independent work? So have you thought of like breaking into independent cinema, because you speak English, which is a plus. I'm pretty sure since you're living in Italy, you have probably picked Italian as well, at least on some level, and you
Yeah.
obviously have the Portuguese.
Yeah.
So like, have you an Italian film industry now? It has unfortunately declined because of Hollywood, but Italian cinema in it was huge at one time, right?
Yeah.
70s, 80s, we know it was a big industry, like big bustling industry. So have you thought of like maybe moving to United States, trying your luck in Hollywood, or maybe trying in Italian, or even going back and like mains. I'm by cinema I mean mainstream cinema, right? I don't mean the independent films. I mean mainstream cinema. So have you thought about it? Is it something that is on your mind?
Yes, actually, yes, absolutely. I When I was in living in the United States, I wanted to stay there, but I couldn't because of my visa. Then I had to come back and finish my school and everything. But I thought a lot about going to the United States and do cinema there, or to go to England and do cinema there too, because I have some friends that lives in London, and it's something that is close to where I am now. And I really love the British cinema. It's something like acting, actually. People that act there, I really admire how they study, and I had the opportunity to talk with people that studied there, and they say like they are amazing in acting. So it's something that I still think about it, to go to there and study there and stay there for a while and see what happens.
Yeah, all the best for that. I hope that since like again I do not like differentiating between independent cinema and mainstream cinema, but this is something a lot of people, this is a demarcation that a lot of people make. So that's why I mentioned that if you want to make out in the mainstream sphere as people see it, so all the best for that, Isadora. And one thing I would love to ask, and this is like, and this interview would be incomplete without this. You mentioned that you're always a very creative person, and you have obviously, we have talked about your career in front of the camera. So have you have you do you have the wish to go back, like go behind the camera, maybe do some directorial gigs, or or something as a writer? Just can you give me just 1 minute? My mom is calling. Just a second. So this is Bengali language, and I told my mom that my mom said because it's lunch time. I said যে একজনের সাথে কথা বলছি, that
Yeah,
I'll eat later.
I need to
Okay,
go
so yeah, now you know Bengali as well. I'll not even edit this part. Will say it's funny actually. So yeah, as I mentioned, so have you do you have the wish to go behind the camera, or do something as a creator, not just as an actress, because you're a creative person?
do something as a person. I didn't understand, like go behind the camera and
Yes, you mentioned that we obviously spoke of you as a actress, right? Something that
yeah.
you did in front of camera. Do you have the wish to go behind the camera, or do you something as a director, maybe as a writer, as a creator, not just as an
Ah, okay.
actress? Because
Yes.
you're so creatively driven as a person, yeah.
Okay, so I would just go and do something. Okay. Something simple, but I really love doing dance. So for me, dance with the hands, it's something that I can improvise, and it's really talks with my body.
Do you mind if I keep this on interview? It's something that would be really interesting. Or if you want, I can edit it out. No worries.
It cut it. I didn't understand. What did you say?
Do you mind if I put this on the interview, or something that you wish me to cut off?
No, you can put. Don't worry, you can.
Okay. I'll
Okay.
definitely put my mom calling into lunch. That is super funny in the middle of an interview. That part I'm going to keep. Anyway, so Isadora, as we were saying that about your creativity and do you see yourself as a director?
Yeah, I really have to study more, absolutely. But I've done some experiments with friends in Brazil, and I really love the direction is something that I really will go into when I will be older. I'm sure about that.
Awesome, Isadora. And Isadora, before we end this, what are the projects we can see you in future? Is there something on the pipeline?
Yes, I'm editing a short movie that I've done in Brazil that it's called Raiz, Z. Okay. I don't know if I could say it right, but I'm editing this and we're going to put on festivals when it's done. And I did this with my friend. She directed and she acted, and I am an actress and the producer. And it's about three sisters that lost their mother and they have issues between them and they have to find a way to be again as a family, understand how they are going to be a family again without this mother and being as sisters. So it's really beautiful. It's about death, it's about psyche, it's about psychological problems, but that the family, the connection between these sisters, it remains. And another project that I'm on right now, it's a theater one, and it's going to be in London next year. It's about Late Macbeth from Shakespeare. So I'm working on that play with a director that I really love him, and we're going to be in London next year.
Thank you so much, Isadora. It was such a nice talking to you, and I wish you all the very best. You're a very creative person, both in front of camera and, as you mentioned, behind the camera as well. Something that you wish does come true, and all the best for your future projects. And last thing I want to say, you need to watching football. You may not be you will be considered as non-Brazilian if you do not follow football. So yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure talking to you, Isadora. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, let me end